I smell desperate comedy from a character who isn't the least bit amusing. Yes, as you may have guessed, Jerry Lewis here fails spectacularly at being the comic relief by virtue of a stiff, forced humor and thoroughly inappropriate voice actor. That's not funny. That's not funny either. That's just annoying. Thankfully, she only appears in a handful of episodes, so we are spared from long-term irritation. Good thing we have Shiro von Blandorf, eh? Oh, come on! Another supporting character is Sakura, a girl who was born without the burden of having a personality, and who hangs around the Emiya residence for some unexplained reason. By the way, if you ever need help sleeping, just listen to her dialogue and it'll knock you right out. Also, she has a connection to Rin that I cannot for the life of me comprehend. The anime doesn't elaborate, and the exposition we get is a flashback that doesn't in any way give you any answers. It just leaves us with a great big what the fuck! And the final supporting character is...
Kimi no na wa nan to iu no kana?
Emiya Shiro.
Emiya Shiro.
George! It's George! Oh, huzzah! And just when I thought we were doomed to nothing but crap! Yes, George Nakata, one of my favorite seiyuu, plays the local priest whose name escapes me. His role is to be the brochure to the Holy Grail War, providing much-needed exposition as to the nature of the plot, and I have to say, his presence definitely classes up this otherwise dreary series. And now we have the other masters in the Holy Grail War, filling in for the antagonists, because I tell you now, there does not exist a single big bad in this series. Wish you were here, number one. Alright, the most enduring master is Ilias Fiel von Einspern, a cute little Austrian girl who is master of a huge ogre-like man known only as Berserker. Watch who you're yelling at, brute. Anyway, Ilia is an antagonist for a while until she's defeated by our heroes, whereupon she joins Bland Vader and essentially becomes a freeloader at his home. Ilia is your typical innocent child juxtaposed with a murderous psychopath, and of course that part of her personality is dropped after she becomes friends with the others. As for Berserker, well, a Berserker, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Antigonopus, blah! I could talk about the other masters, but honestly, I have to say, Ilia is the only one with a significant backstory, and as such, I'd be hard-pressed to come up with anything. They're here, they're evil, they die, and the anime overviewer is secretly a woman. End of story! Alright then, now it is time to look at the dull, depressingly boring plot that makes Fate's Stay Night such a chore to sit through. Brace yourselves, dear viewers, and bring some strong coffee too. You're going to need it. The story begins, oddly enough, in episode 2, when Shiro Emiya stumbles across Rin Tosaka and her servant Archer as they duel another servant. This Lancer fellow decides he wants to turn our Bland hero into shish kebab and chases him back to his home. But before he can stick Shiro, the boy somehow manages to summon the mighty Saber, who upon chasing away the Lancer, becomes his servant in the Holy Grail War. You may be asking yourself, but what about episode 1 then? To which I answer, padding! Episode 1 contributes absolutely nothing to the story, and almost all of it is useless and boring filler. Don't believe me? Let's go ahead and watch a bit of it, shall we?
大体藤内こそ毎朝毎晩飯時狙ってくるのはつけ上がってるって言わないのかね。
私はシローが立派
Let's
に
get
育つまで
away,
親
fly
代わりに誓ったんだよ。
away. I found the path to paradise, shining spiral of... Enough! If you're quite convinced now, then let us move on! As it turns out, the Holy Grail War is an ancient, century-spanning conflict that pits 7 magicians and servants in a grand tournament to determine who is to possess the Holy Grail. The nature of the Grail is, unfortunately, only solid as long as the minds of the writers are made up, something that doesn't last for very long in this series. During the entire anime, I think I've been given no less than 5 explanations as to what the Grail is and does. Everything from it being the original biblical artifact, to serving as an arcane suppository to King Ghidorah! That aside, the servants themselves are all the souls of fallen heroes from the various eras in history. For example, Berserker is Heracles and Assassin is Kojiro Sasaki. But oddly enough, many of the servants' identities are never really stated. So much so that I've decided to take a guess at their identities. I'm going to say Lubu. Crap! Oh, you're Jean Grey! Definitely Jean Grey! Woohoo! Okay, this one's a toughie, but I can get it, You must be Princess Emerald! Damn, so close! Okay, this one's for the game. Let's see. Red coat, spiky hair, dark skin. Of course, you're Friedrich Nietzsche! I knew it! Oh, damn, I'm good! What do I win? Crap! Ahem. Another major plot point in Fate Stay Night is Shiro and Saber's relationship, which follows a somewhat archetypical boy meets girl scenario. However, things are complicated by Saber's royal aloofness, lack of experience in being a normal girl, and of course, the fact that Shiro is determined to make as much of a nuisance out of himself as possible. Seriously, I'm surprised Saber doesn't just slay his ass and take his place as main character. Just because I failed with the overviewer doesn't mean you will. Go for it, baby! I'm rooting for ya! Also of note is the fact that no one aside from Saber is ever interested in Auric Blandfinger, except maybe Sakura, but that's just because they have about the same levels of boring. The only difference between the two is that I cannot nail Shiro! Oh, come to Auntie. Ah! Damn my urge to destroy bad characters! Well, the cons for Fate Stay Night are about as obvious as they are numerous. First of all, the main character is thoroughly unlikable, with his insane behavior, generic background, and altogether hypocritical views on life. It's really sad to see him drag down everyone else because of his incompetence. Honestly, what was Type Moon thinking? Secondly, the plot points introduced are, for the most part, never resolved, or done so in a very poor manner that leaves us with more questions than answers. On a similar note, the characters just toss out exposition like rice at a freaking wedding. We're simply expected to buy everything they tell us, even if it contradicts what we've previously heard. Oh, and of course, it's boring! There is nothing more boring than the first 15 episodes, and even then the interesting bits remain few and far between. Half of the scenes are either stretched far longer than is necessary, or are just simply padding! Here's what I think the main problem is. The heroes are given many opportunities to do exciting and intriguing things. They just never take them! In fact, one of the things I find that I repeat to myself the most while watching this series is this! Oh no, that might be interesting. But on the flip side, this anime does have things that I like. One of them is Saber. She is the exact opposite of Barako Blanma, doing a credit to her identity as King Arthur, and even being a delicate on occasion. It's always the good ones who should be main character that aren't, wouldn't you agree? Also, the fighting was rather good. Granted, it was slow on occasion and they talk a bit too much, but for the most part it is fluid and fast-paced, providing a welcome distraction from the dreariness. Accompanying Saber in the prose is Tosaka. She proved to me that there is a correct way of handling the tsundere character. Here's hoping that we see more people like her in the future. Psst, what's that? Psst, Tosaka is the main character of the manga? Sweet! It's going to be a magfest tonight! The outfits worn by the servants are also impressive as well. Especially Saber and Assassins. They really put us into the medieval and mythical feel of the series. Lastly, I find the reimagining of servants' backstories, particularly Saber's, to be both ambitious and innovative, and I am a man who encourages originality. In closing, I can only say that Fate Stay Night is boring, nonsensical, and catering to a very lopsided cast as far as appeal is concerned. Of course, there are positives to it, but for the most part I was struggling to keep my eyes open. That being said, I honestly think that the series had potential. The premise was interesting, but the execution was botched. That's why I am giving to Fate Stay Night a 5 out of 10. A decidedly average score to a series that might have been something much more. It's starting to dawn on me, though. Perhaps there are no good animated video game adaptations. Oh, I wish I could find at least one example of a good video game anime. Just one! Marvelous! Join me next time when I shall be reviewing this anime. Until then, I am your cheerful torturer, the Anti-Viewer!
"'Tis but a scratch.